Good morning. I checked to make sure I'm not muted. I am not. We're off to a great start. So let's get right into it, shall we? Not let him. I don't think you would. Well, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna finish that. As Andy said earlier, a reminder: make sure that you're voting every single day. It is free, and when I say free, I mean free. It's not like free with a catch or like free, but it's literally you just have to like sign in with either your Facebook or you can use a credit or debit card. They put a $1 hold on your card for about a day max, and then they take the hold right back off. And it's just to verify that you're a human and not someone who's going in and trying to like vote 100 times. So Facebook, it gives you one free vote every day. If you use the card method, that's 2 free votes each day. So you can vote up to 3 times a day for free without having to open your purse, your wallet, your bank account, aside from the hold. But again, I think it was less than a day that I had a hold on my card. I wasn't watching it, but not free but. That's Prone's headline on Grindr. It's just free butt and it's a picture of a hole. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate all the support. I know that it's a marathon, so I feel like it feels like a big ask because there's so many rounds. I think total there are 9 rounds of voting in this competition, assuming you make it all the way to the end. So I'm in round 3 right now. That means there are 15 of us left in my group. After this round, there will be 10 of us. After the next round, there will be 5 of us. And then after that round, there will be 1 left. And then everybody who got second place in their group goes into another like group together, and someone gets to like a second chance out of that group. And then all of us get put into a bucket together, and that's when like things start to get pretty real and we're getting close to the end. So all told, I think there's 9 or 10 rounds of voting, and I know that asking people to vote every single day for what could end up being like 3 months is a lot. And I'm trying very hard not to nag or be too pushy, especially now because like we're sitting in first place in our group right now, so I feel pretty good that I can get through the next round or two without anybody having to like donate a bunch of money or anything. So especially if you're preparing to or considering contributing money and adding votes that way, hold off for now maybe, because we might need you in a couple rounds. But I also don't want people to stop free voting because that's what's keeping us in first place. So we're going back and forth with this Elizabeth person. So keep the votes coming, but don't like overextend yourselves. Don't. I'm not gonna like chase people down. I will say, and this is not that big of a deal, but it is funny. There's this person I went to high school with who every time I post on Facebook about it, they DM me and they're like, just voted for you. It shows me when people vote for me. And this person has never voted for me. And it's not that big of a deal. Like if you don't have the time or if you just don't want to, you don't have to. But it's just very strange that this person is going so far out of their way to they're spending more time telling me that they voted than they would if they just voted. Like it tells me, it doesn't, I don't get an alert or anything, but I have like a little dashboard and it shows me the last 3 people who voted through Facebook. It shows me the last 3 people who voted through the card, like the +2 vote method. And it shows me everybody who has donated money to this organization for votes. So I can see, and most of the people who are voting for me are people I know. Are they doing it under? No, because it also tells me how long ago they voted. So when they tell me they voted, I look and there's nobody who voted even at the same time. And like I said, most of the people are people I know, so I can see the names. Like if you vote through Facebook, it attaches your Facebook name to your vote. If you vote using a card, it attaches, I think, the name on your card. And the vast majority of the people who've been voting, I know your names. It tells me that, yes, I've seen when Prone votes. I've seen when Andy votes. There are some people, like there's one person who it just shows their initials. So I think if you make an account, you can pick what name shows. I don't really know all the details. But like I can tell. And I know that this person didn't vote. And again, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Like, I'm not upset if people don't vote. My own family hasn't voted for me yet. But don't go out of your way to lie to me about it. Like, that's weird. That's weird. It's one thing if you don't vote. Like, obviously, you're not required or obligated to vote, and I'm not going to disown you for not voting for me. But it is a weird thing to do. Especially, like, this isn't someone I'm, like, close with. Like I said, we went to high school together, but we weren't, like, tight. They were a few years behind me. It's just a weird thing to do. Like I said, you could spend just as much time and actually vote for me instead of just telling me that you did. Like, you can check. Well, I won't do that now because it'll show up on my screen, and I don't want to do that to you, Heron. I trust you. I trust you. You're also hot enough that if you're not voting for me, I'm not going to be mad at you for it. Rules are rules. Rules are rules. Sorry, I do make the rules. That's my rule. If you're not going to vote for me, you better be hot. Do we all know Razor's name? I mean, I think most of us do at this point. Do it for the exactly. I think I'm actually wearing the same outfit in some of the pictures on my profile. Not with this makeup, obviously, but. So it's easy to do. Like I said, I'm trying not to be too naggy about it, but I'm also trying to make sure people don't forget about it. Because again, I think these free votes are what will help keep me at the top so that later on when things start to get tighter and there are less and less of us left, it won't take as many. Because let's be honest, hand to God, if we have any hope of winning this, some of us are going to have to buy some votes. It's just going to have to happen. There are like influencers and people with huge followings who are competing in this. People who have far greater reach than I do. I'm not allowed to buy votes. I'm not allowed to donate and get votes out of it. I can only use the free voting options because obviously I can't like just donate a shitload of money to myself and then I win. That I get. And I'm not asking anybody to break the bank in order to get me votes. But I do know that the votes reset before the last couple rounds. So if we can get through to like out of this group, if we can be the top one out of our group and make it into the final rounds without having to spend a bunch of money, we can then open up the purses when we get into the last couple rounds. So it's a strategy thing. I will let you all know if it starts to feel like maybe we're slipping. But I feel pretty good that we'll get at least to the top 5 of our group without having to spend like tons and tons of money. As long as we keep, like I said, as long as we keep voting every single day, you get 3 votes per day if you use both methods. And of course, I appreciate it. It's a very cool prize. So it's $13,000, which a bitch could use right now. And they'll fly the winner out to California to do Anarchist Ragdoll. Thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it. They'll fly the winner out to California to do a photo shoot at a very special location with Kane Hodder, who is the man famous for playing Jason Voorhees. And it'll be in a magazine. Come on. Jason Voorhees murdering a drag queen in a magazine? That's what we deserve this Halloween. That's what we deserve this Halloween season. Let him. I would let him slice and dice me. So yeah, thank you again for the reminder. I appreciate that. And again, I've been trying to keep like posting in, there's a special thread in our Discord for it. I've been posting on Instagram and Facebook in particular, because I know a lot of like local folks aren't paying attention to like my Twitter, for example. So I'm trying again not to be too pushy about it. Mute me if you have to. But also know that I do really appreciate it when folks are showing up and showing out, because it means a lot. I would love, because I know people look on Twitch as like less than, but there are some very talented cosplayers, horror creators, horror fans on Twitch, and I would love to see one of us win, and I would love for that person to be me. I would love for that person to be me. Hi, Taffeta. I would love that. I would love that. I'm going to tell them you got to fly Taffeta here too. Or you might not even need to fly. I think the location's in Pasadena. I'll tell them. I'll tell them that you're my plus one. Could walk over. Well, love that. Just crash the party. Crash the party. Can we get a shout out for Taffeta, please? I was lurking. Was it yesterday or the day before you were playing some Sims? The Barbie Sims thing. Very cute. Very slay. Thank you. Thank you. We would love to see you do it. I would love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we'll see. It's hard because I don't know how many groups there are. Like every time, there are people who are taking out ads, like on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook feed now is jacked up anyway because I do a lot of weird Googling for things like the Onedown, which we're going to get to, I promise. But now that I'm in this Face of Horror thing, I get so many ads from other people who are competing who have like boosted their posts asking people to vote for them. And if you look at the comments, it's nothing but other people who are also in the competition dropping their links and saying like, vote for me. And everybody's like, I'm first in my group. I have no idea how many groups there are. And as far as I can tell, there's no way to know. So I'm number one in my group. But how many other groups are there? And there were 100 people in my group, or 99 to start. So it's hard to know how many people there are, which I think that's why there's so many rounds, but it's also like, can y'all just stop and let me win already? Barbie Sims, I love it. I wish I was more of a Sims girly. I think I tried it once and got just real confused. And I don't have a lot of patience for that stuff. As you all probably know. When it comes to learning new games, my tolerance, very low. Why the nun cosplay? Why not? It's almost Halloween. It's almost Halloween. Why not? And I didn't want to wear a wig today, if we're being honest. My pronouns when I'm in drag are she, her, or they, them. Either or. When I'm out of drag, I'll use any pronouns. You like them? I was just saying too that one of the reasons I like wearing this costume and not having to wear a wig is that I can wear these giant lashes because these will absolutely get stuck in a wig. So it just felt like the right choice today. It's comfortable. I don't have to wear pants. I think today's going to be a long stream because we've got several things to accomplish this evening. So I was like, I might as well be comfortable, right? What about jump off / a bridge? I'm sorry, are you trying to make a pronoun joke right now? Because that's not even funny. That's not even a good joke, even for shitty people. Baby, if you're gonna come in here and try to troll me, you've got to try way harder than that. Do you think someone looking like this hasn't heard a joke like that before? You think doing what I do, you're gonna be able to come in here with some shit like that and get me? That low-hanging fruit? Honey. Honey. Embarrassing. Exactly. If I can't turn whatever it is you have to say, if I can't turn around and monetize it by putting it on a t-shirt, I don't want it. I don't want it. Please stop calling me honey. It's racist. Oh, okay. It's racist. Interesting that you can spell racist, but not pronouns. Very interesting. Well, if I'm racist, then you should probably leave. Save yourself. I'm black, not honey. So you want me to call you black instead? Is that what you're trying to say? Girl, go ahead and ban them. They're boring. They're boring. They're not funny. They're not smart. I can't do all this. Bye. If you're gonna come in and troll, I can respect it. If you're sharp enough, funny enough, or original enough, again, that I can do something with that. But if you're just gonna come in here and be an asshole, no. 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 Bye. Hi, Soxy. Everybody say happy birthday, Soxy. Soxy's birthday was, what was it? Yesterday or the day before, if I remember. I have a thing that texts me. But happy belated birthday, Soxy. We love you. Best. I tried. I'm happy to try to like ping pong with a troll if they've got the wits to do so. But the pronoun jokes. And here's the thing. As the troll, you have the element of surprise. You can sit here and watch my content for hours, and they do, before you say a word and start something with me. You have time to plan what you're going to say. You have time to Google. You have time to look up what other people say. You can go look at my other content and look at what other people pick on me for. You have the opportunity to start off as strong as you want. And if you're not willing to put in the effort and do the work, that's what's insulting. Not whatever you're calling me, not the pronoun jokes. That's all boring. I hear that shit all the time. But the fact that you won't even put in the effort and try? No. No. Happy birthday, honey. Anyway, try harder. Try harder and do better. Everybody. Anyway. I think that's a result, honestly, because I also see that my viewer count's a little bit higher than it normally is around this time of my stream. We're sitting in the just chatting category today instead of the talk shows and podcast category. And for those of you who've been around here for a while, typically when I sit in the just chatting category, I tend to get a lot more trolls than normal. So good for the numbers. Good for the bank account, ultimately. But mods. Plan accordingly. Plan accordingly. Are we ready to actually get into this conversation now? We've been streaming for almost an hour. So yes, make sure you're voting every day. Face of Horror, ! Face in chat. That link right there. And again, you can vote up to 3 times every single day. Set a reminder. I like to do it right before I go to bed. Because I'm periodically checking the dashboard over the course of the day anyway. And I feel like that's a good way to just like end the day on a high note. Get a couple votes in, feel good about my momentum, and then wake up and check again and see what's happened since I went to bed. That's what works for me. You will find what works for you. I also feel like we're going to switch out this lip at some point today. This just feels like it's getting everywhere right now. Oops, all goons. What else do I have? I thought I had another announcement. Maybe not. Oh, just to follow the other account on TikTok. So I have my Carry the One TikTok, but if you go to, it's the Onedown Live on TikTok. That's where I'm posting all the clips specifically from the Onedown portion of our streams. So I do technically have 2 TikTok accounts right now. So make sure you're following me both. I think the other one only has 8 followers right now. So if we could work on that, that'd be great. Thanks. All right, so let's go ahead and just kick it right off. So the first one is not a goon. So this is the first story I think we're going to cover, is I think the only one that's not explicitly about. We have two pretty solid goons, 2 star goons, but then there are several goons who are like peripherally relevant in the conversation too. So anyway, Razor, you will be very happy about this conversation. So the first one, and this one actually is super interesting to me, but it also includes kind of a like a call to action for you all. So for the first time, the US Census Bureau might start asking about gender identity in their surveys. So the census, for folks who maybe aren't in the US or who don't know what the census is, the census runs every 10 years. People get hired like as temporary workers to literally go door to door and interview folks. And it's a way of trying to get a sense of how many people are in the US and then to better understand kind of the demographics of the people who are here. So the questions range from things like your income, what kind of work do you do, how much education do you have. There have been questions about things like immigration status added in recent years. And it's a way of kind of determining how to allocate federal money. So it helps us understand where are the people who might need more funding for healthcare, or where should we be building more like roads and infrastructure because there are more people in this part of the country than we thought there were. So it's a way that the government tries to get a sense of where and who people are so that they can better strategize how they're going to run the country. It's run every 10 years, but there are what are called American Community Surveys, periodically done in between those 10-year gaps. So they're like a micro survey. So they'll survey, maybe instead of trying to get every single person in the United States, they might do a sample of like 1 or 2 million people instead. So it's sort of like a mini census, not usually as extensive. And sometimes the questions can be a little bit more targeted based on what it is that the government's kind of tackling or where people's priorities are in terms of funding. So basically on Tuesday, the Census Bureau opened up a public comment for a proposed new questions on this American Community Survey. So it's not necessarily a proposal to add questions to the census yet, but generally speaking, they kind of test run these questions on the American Community Surveys and then maybe add them to the census if they find that those questions are yielding the type of data that they need to make better decisions. So the proposal is to add questions to the American Community Survey to collect information around gender identity of all the folks in the household. So again, about 3 to 4 million households get surveyed every year as part of these American Community Surveys. So if the proposal gets approved, they'll start probably next year or the year after running tests during the American Community Survey using these questions, probably in a couple different forms to workshop what works best. So again, they track changes in the communities around the country, things like age, geographic location, but then they also ask questions about things like your marriage status, economic need, all kinds of different stuff. So this is in response to there have been a lot of federal agencies that, as we've come to better understand not just gender and as a whole, but how many folks there are who are not cisgender or straight. There are a lot of federal agencies that have been asking for data around like how many people are there who are trans, who are non-binary, who are et cetera, et cetera. And that's information that we really don't have. That's not information that the Census Bureau has really asked about in the past. Outside of things like there have been questions about whether or not, like if someone says that yes, the people living in the household are married, there have been questions in the past that ask if that is a same-sex marriage or not. But again, that doesn't necessarily give us a whole lot of information about the needs of those couples or the other people living in the home. So the concerns about this, and rightfully so, this is something that comes up anytime we talk about collecting data around gender and sexuality. The biggest concern is privacy related. So generally the way that these surveys work, one person fills out the survey for the entire household. Generally, or ideally, the head of the household or the person who knows the most about the household. So this wouldn't be necessarily asking every single person for their gender identity. It would be asking one person in the household to share the gender identity of everybody in the home, which they may or may not know. They may or may not support some of their trans or non-binary or non-conforming housemates. And so there's questions, one, about the accuracy of that data. Can we trust that each person in the household is going to know that information about all the other people in the home? But then also, are we creating a situation in which we're like exacerbating what might already be a tense kind of conversation or situation for folks in that home? So I remember that too, Andy. The Nielsen one about, yeah. And TV Guide, I think, used to do it too. So that's kind of the concern, is that while this information could be super valuable, it could also be a little unreliable. And at worst, it could be a problem for some families. Again, because one person fills out that survey for the entire household. So we're assuming that that one person will know all of this information. there's also the fact that for a lot of folks, their identity, especially around gender, can be fluid and can change. So the question also remains of, this is a snapshot in time, but how do we understand or know how the fluidity of gender can impact some of this? So someone might identify as non-binary when they fill out this survey, but then the next year they might have a whole different identity that they're kind of using. So lots of kind of nuance around gathering data around, and this is by no means exclusively a census thing. I worked in DEI for a very long time, and it's always really, really hard and tricky to try to track information around gender and sexuality, because if you look at all of the other sort of categories that they tend, especially in workplaces, to track, things like your race, your biological sex, veteran status, disability, those are all generally identities that are pretty static. Your race is your race. That generally doesn't change. Your veteran status generally doesn't change. Your sex assigned at birth doesn't necessarily change. So it's easier to track that data because we know those as fixed points for the most part. Disability, there's an argument there where some folks may not always be disabled, or may at higher not have been disabled, but now they are. But there are processes to update that information as well. And where we're talking about gender and sexuality, those are all things that, especially for, I would say, younger folks now, and folks who are still kind of figuring out who they are as human beings in general, that's still very much a fluid conversation. And so how to understand what we need to know about the communities that exist, while also understanding that the data we have is only going to be accurate for the time that we collected it, and understanding the nuance of there might be people in the home who don't know about those identities, and are those people getting counted? And if they're not getting counted, how do we support them? How do we get the funding and the support that they need to them? This is all sort of stemming from during the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a report in 2021 that found that the pandemic had a disproportionate impact on LGBTQ plus folks, specifically in terms of poverty and food insecurity. So again, all these other kind of federal agencies are starting to realize that there are unique impacts on queer folks, queer, trans, non-binary, etc., that we're not necessarily able to see from a data perspective because we're not collecting that information. And data systems historically move super slow anyway, but especially in terms of identity. So think about, like, when you apply for jobs, you generally fill out a survey at the end asking your race, your gender, your veteran status, your disability status. And often those options are pretty dated. I filled out a lot of them lately, and a lot of them will only include male and female. Some of the surveys around race are like literally just, it's like white, black, other. So often the systems used to collect that data move even slower. So getting to a point where we're able to understand the deep intricacies of gender in a way that we can actually use that data. And then there's also the question of how granular do we get with the data, because we know that we can't drill down as deeply as we want. So we probably will not ever get to a point where the census asks for gender information as specific as the label that you use. So we will probably not ever see a census form that has terms like genderqueer, demi-boy, agender, getting that specific, because that might not be the most actionable data when we're talking about aggregate. But we also don't want to overgeneralize and treat totally different communities as though they are one and the same. And so learning where to draw that line and where we can get useful, actionable data that doesn't, again, water down sort of the differences between these different communities is going to be an interesting conversation to see as it progresses. Yeah, and then, of course, this is all in the context of like a government that every 2 years becomes more or less open to having these conversations. And it's all subject to kind of the ebb and flow of the political tides, as it were. A lot of it's going to depend on who's president around 2028, 2029, when we're starting to gear up for the next census. So we'll see. A lot can happen. But what I wanted to share with you all is there is a link. So again, this was all announced as a proposal that is now currently open for public comment. Hi, Kiki, love you. And so since it's public comment, you all can comment as well. So I'm sharing a link in chat right now. I will also include it in the description when I post this on YouTube. You can go to that link, it's on the Federal Register, and provide your comment on the proposal. So you can say, I think this is a good idea. I think this is a bad idea. I think this could be a good idea, but I would want to see it done in this way. The period of public comment is open until November, I think 20th. Yeah. So you've got a couple months to maybe think about it, chat with some of your LGBTQ plus friends and family members about it if that's something you're comfortable doing. And then you can enter your own comment there. And allegedly, they read these comments and they use that to help guide their decision making moving forward. So if this is something you think is a good idea, please share that. If it's something that you're concerned about, share that too. I don't know where I'm at. I'm on the fence. I think I would rather. I feel like if they don't make this move, if they don't start at least trying to collect the data, we're never going to get there. So I'm inclined to push for a yes, let's do this, with like the caveat of make sure you're not doing this in a way that's going to be harmful to these communities. Because I feel like if we don't, it's just going to be. I didn't know you were streaming, ma'am. Ma'am. I don't think I have alerts on this page. I don't think I have alerts on this page, but Kiki, everybody go follow Kiki right now. Welcome in, Raiders. Welcome in, Raiders. So nice to have you. We're in the middle of a very deep, intense conversation, which never happens here. How was your stream? What did you do? What'd y'all get up to? So yeah, make sure to enter your comments. Again, I think I'm leaning toward yes, just because I feel like if we don't start the ball rolling on this, it's never going to happen. And if we don't have, for better or worse, large government systems in particular won't care about things and won't prioritize people or communities or items, actions, unless there's data to back it up. And so if we're not collecting the data, we can't point to that data to say, this is the statistical impact that what we're doing is having specifically on LGBTQ plus folks. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, I think we're going to probably we're going to do it poorly at first, especially, but I would rather us do something rather than nothing. So this is the link for the public comment, and you literally just click the submit a formal comment, go and type in your comment. You can upload it too if you prefer, like a PDF or whatever. You share an email just for like a confirmation that doesn't get posted. Some information about yourself, and then you can just submit it. So let your voice be heard. Is it Astiboga? I'm so sorry if I butchered that. Hello. Welcome in. It's pretty fun. We did like 3 hours of Mystery Heroes. Oh, I love that. Some light makeup application in between rounds. I love it. I love me some Mystery Heroes. Maybe we'll do Mystery Heroes later. That'd be kind of fun. That'd be kind of fun. So for the like data nerds too in the room, Razor, there's also a whole abstract here. So there's a summary, kind of giving you the basic idea of what they're trying to achieve, some of the key dates, background information, who to reach out to if you have specific questions, and then kind of this whole thing, basically explaining why it is they're putting out this proposal, what it is they're trying to do. It gives a breakdown of how much they anticipate it's going to cost, if you're into that sort of thing. So for the people who want to do a little more digging, again, we've just barely scratched the surface of what this is kind of all about. But it's cool to see this coming up. I'm glad that we're having these conversations. And I hope that they really are listening to these comments. So please feel free. Again, I'll post the link. And I'll go and put that in the Discord as well, in the little social justice. Social justice channel that we have. So make your voice heard. You matter. Slay. What else we got here? Oh, we have two more. So we have two more kind of big, well, three technically, but one's literally just like a heads up. Let's go to the goon page for this. We've reached the oops all goons section of the evening. I gotta turn this up again. That. Guna. Stan Guna. So let's talk about Lauren Boebert, shall we? Let's talk about Lauren Boebert. Are we ready to have this conversation? Lauren. So let's start by, I'm sure if any of you pay attention to US politics in particular, this will not be a surprise. However, Lauren Boebert is a piece of shit. She's a bitch. She's terrible. Pretty much everything that comes out of her mouth is terrible. Everything she's ever voted for and against is like the worst possible take. And I hope more than anything that she doesn't get reelected, because I also learned this today in the course of researching this. If she gets, I don't know, is this her? I think she's in her second term now. So if she gets reelected in the U.S. representatives, Congress folks have a 2-year term. So this will be her third term, which would give her 6 years in Congress. This is the term that would qualify her for a lifetime pension. So if she gets reelected, the same guy who ran against her last time is running against her this time. And he almost beat her last time. It was very close. She lives in a very conservative, obviously, district in Colorado. And he almost beat her last time. He's running again. But if she wins, she will be eligible for a lifetime pension. She'll keep getting paid after she retires or doesn't get reelected for the rest of her life. So if you are a voter in her district in Colorado and you're watching this for some reason, please do not let her end up on our bankroll, our payroll for the rest of her life. I beg. I beg. She's terrible. Why is she terrible today? Let's talk about it. So, much to everybody's surprise, she is a giant hypocrite. So, on September 10th, so this is like cold tea because I didn't do an episode of this last week, but I could not let this go without talking about it. I've been sitting on this for a hot minute. We have to talk about it. So September 10th, which again was almost 2 weeks ago now, she and her date, the man that she was on a date with, she says this was their first date. There are reports that she had been seeing this man for months. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They were kicked out of a theater where they were seeing a production of Beetlejuice the musical. Important to note that this was a family-friendly, all-ages production of Beetlejuice the musical. This was not like an 18-plus, adults-only. It was also a pretty big theater. This was, I think, in Denver. It was a pretty big venue. So there were a lot of people in this venue. And so she and this man were kicked out of the venue on September 10th during this musical that they were there to see together. So initially, part of like the intrigue of this whole story is that things sort of like came out in bits and pieces, and every time something new came out, it became clear that there was like more to the story than what we were getting. So it was a slow burn of a story. So initially, the like drama was the people thought she was vaping. And they said, oh, she was vaping inside this theater, and that's why they got kicked out. She was vaping. They were being loud and kind of obnoxious and rambunctious. People were saying that she was super drunk, and they were both acting really like belligerent. The theater like confirmed that 2 patrons had been kicked out, but didn't say why or what they were doing. So initially, the concern was she was vaping, and that's super irresponsible in a public place where you know you're not supposed to be doing that. So Lauren Boebert and her campaign team, her campaign manager, put out a statement saying that was not true. She had told her campaign team, I was not vaping. This was all just a bunch of bullshit. And so they put out this really like kind of snarky statement that said something like Lauren Boebert is guilty of the atrocity of enjoying the arts or some bullshit like that. That was clearly not taking this seriously. But then the videos started coming out. And girl, it was so much worse. So first off, she was vaping. They both were vaping. They were both being really loud and being really obnoxious, and there's tons of video of people going into asking them to stop. So there were 2 acts to this show. They got kicked out during the second act. So they had been warned several times. People had come to speak to them several times before they were finally removed. So it was, first off, bad just because she lied. Her campaign lied. And they were like, she wasn't vaping. She was. She was. That's just a stupid thing to lie about. It's stupid to lie anyway, especially when you're a public official who depends on like the trust and faith of the people who live in your district. That's just a really poor choice, obviously. So again, the venue said that they were talking loudly, vaping, and using cameras during the performance, all of which are forbidden, if not just frowned upon. They were warned during intermission, but then they continued to do it into the second act, and so at that point they were asked to leave. There's also video of them leaving, and she at least looks like she's maybe a little bit tipsy, but that's conjecture at this point. Whatever. Then some more videos started coming out. So there was surveillance footage from inside the venue. And to their credit, I will say this: I've seen a lot of like security camera footage, like CCTV. I've like watched a lot of like the like camera footage from various like crimes and shit. And usually it's pretty bad footage. Like for all the technology we have, for the fact that I can sit here in front of you and I'm here in HD, security cameras suck. So usually it's like black and white, it's grainy, it's dark, and you can barely see shit. This video was pretty good. It's still black and white, but considering how far away this video camera was from where they were sitting, it's very clear you can see that beyond the vaping, beyond the distractions, beyond using their cameras, it can be clearly seen that the two of them were like fondling each other as well. So you can see he's like reaching under her arm and grabbing her breast. She can be seen like rubbing the crotch of his pants, and they're very like touchy-feely, handsy, while there are literally, it's a venue full of people and there are children in this room. You can see there's one clip I saw, and I'm not going to show any of it because I'm not sure what I can and can't show on Twitch. There are plenty of links out there, though. It's not hard to find these videos if it's something you feel you want to see or need to see. There's nothing super like gratuitous. You don't see any body parts or anything. But again, it's very clear that they're like touching and rubbing, and I'm not trying to get TOS for fucking Lauren Boebert. But there are children in this audience. Like there's one clip I remember seeing where there's a child, probably, I don't know, 10, maybe 12. I'm bad at guessing, but not like a small child, but certainly not an adult. Walks like down the aisle behind them and trying to get into her seat. So there are very obviously children nearby, which is terrible and a shitty thing to do, especially from someone like Lauren Boebert, who has spent so much of her time in Congress ranting and raving against LGBTQ plus folks, calling us groomers, telling us that we shouldn't be around children because it's not safe. We're going to harm children. And then she's the one doing shit like that. She's literally doing the things that she accuses drag queens of doing herself. Which, if you've followed Lauren Boebert at all, is not a surprise. It's usually the loudest voices that have the most to hide. If you've ever like paid attention to the American Republican Party, it's usually the folks who are ranting and raving the most about something that are probably the most guilty of doing it. I know, pretend to be shocked. But she's like a near constant presence speaking out against LGBTQ plus folks. So to add more to this, because of course this isn't enough, to make it even more, to add another layer, I guess I would say, her date that night was a man named Quinn Gallagher, who's a registered Democrat. So her whole thing through all this, she did apologize, sort of. She hasn't come out and said specifically that she's sorry for grabbing this man's crotch. So she's very good at doing the like, I fell short of the expectations the people of Colorado have set for me. I've fallen short of the expectations I've set for myself. But she doesn't actually ever say specifically what she did. She just talks in real broad strokes about, oh, I'm so sorry. I've let you down. I'm disappointed in myself. Like very that. So very much like, I don't actually mean this, but I know you all want to hear me say I'm sorry. She did make a remark about wanting to make sure that she checks party affiliations moving forward. So what some Republicans are running with is this idea that this Quinn Gallagher guy was like a plant by the Democrats, and that he did this on purpose to try to like catch her so that she won't win re-election. Which is why it's important to note that there are folks who are like, these two have been together for months. They may not have been like official or public, but there are people who know him who have said that he had been dating her for months and that it wasn't like this was the first time they were together. I also, and this is no judgment, I'm not here to kink shame, but when we're talking about public places, you're now bringing in other people who have not consented. So I would not think that on a first date, I'd be touching and rubbing up on someone in a venue. I wouldn't be probably touching and rubbing up on anybody anywhere on a first date, but certainly not in the middle of a room full of people while Beetlejuice is going on the stage. Like, come on now. But anyway, so this Quinn Gallagher guy, what's interesting is he's a Democrat, allegedly registered, but he also owns a bar in Aspen, Colorado called Hoochcraft Cocktail Bar, which has been confirmed to have hosted at least one drag show this year. Back in January, there was a drag show. I think it was a fundraiser of some sort. I've got the link here. Because, of course, she does. Here's an Instagram post. Winter Wonderland Burlesque and Drag Show. Okay, it wasn't a fundraiser. So a burlesque and drag show. So not just drag queens, but burlesque as well. This is a post from there was one drag queen, I think, who performed, and then the rest would all consider themselves burlesque performers. So at least once, his bar has hosted a drag show, which Lauren Boebert has also spent a lot of her time speaking out against and saying that drag shows are inappropriate, that they shouldn't be allowed, and that they are hotspots for groomers and P words. But this guy that she was dating happens to own a bar in which he was happy to profit from at least one drag show. Quite interesting, I think. So again, she claims this was their first date and that she's going to check party affiliations in the future. But again, there are other people who claim that they've been together for months, that they've been casually at least dating each other. They are not together anymore. Lauren has confirmed that they have parted ways, but that she hopes to remain friends with him because he's a good guy. She also said she's done with dating for the time being. She made a reference to, she's like, I haven't been dating for, I think, was it 18 years that she's been with her, or had been with her husband. She recently separated from her husband. She's going through a divorce. And so she made a comment about how, like, the last time she dated, there weren't infrared cameras everywhere watching her, which I'm like, okay, do they need to be watching you for you to, like, keep your hands to yourself? Because that's telling on yourself. But like I said, the loudest voices are often the ones that are most suspect. So much to my surprise, shock, and awe, there's been no attempt by congressional leadership to do anything about this. So nobody is trying to even like issue a like stern warning to her for her behavior and conduct. And they probably won't, because they need her vote. But at the very least, I hope that this does remain at the front of the minds of the voters of her district in Colorado when the time comes to choose who they want representing them for the next 2 years. Because I know this, beyond her horrible reputation, her shitty takes, her horrible opinions, and the things she has said and done in the past, this is not the type of conduct that I would want from someone I have elected to speak for me in Washington. And I would hope that for most of them, they can say the same. On a separate but not totally unrelated note, some of you were with me a couple weeks ago, or almost a month ago now, I guess, when we watched the GOP debate. It was the second GOP presidential debate. The next one is this week. I didn't realize. It snuck up on us. So the next Republican debate is on Wednesday, September 27th. So it's in California. I think it's at the Reagan Library. Do we stream it? That's my question. Should we stream it? Susan, I mean, can you imagine if she did, though? She would just be very concerned about it, I'm sure. So I think we might stream it. I'm not going to do drag because it's going to be a Wednesday night. And we might not do bingo because that was a lot of work. But um, he might be in fourth place in some polls, but he's still second place in national polling. So I think we're going to watch it. So thus far, there are 4 candidates who've qualified. So Donald Trump is qualified, but he's already said he's not going to go to any of the debates. Word is that he's planning on going to Michigan to speak to some of the picketing, striking auto workers there instead. Much like he did last time, he released that interview on Twitter to kind of like try to upstage the debate. He seems to be planning something similar now. So he is qualified, but he's not going to be there. You qualify by getting a certain number of donors spread out across a certain number of states. And you also have to achieve a certain level of polling in national polling. So he has done so. He's still the front runner by a long shot. So all the people in this debate are going to be people who are fighting just to like kind of claw their way into the race more than anything else. But he won't be there. So it is a good opportunity for them to get a chance to speak. I would imagine if he were there, he would probably take up a lot of the time. So it's a good opportunity for them to speak. So he is qualified. Ron DeSantis is qualified. He is still in second in most national polling, although he has slid. He hasn't seen any sort of increase since the last debate where he was not great. So he is still technically in second, but Vivek Ramaswamy is also qualified. He has been gaining, so he is in third in most national polls now. And then the fourth person is Nikki Haley, who probably has seen the best or the biggest kind of jump since the last debate, especially kind of in contrast to like Vivek, who is very much like, I am not a normal politician. She is very much like a seasoned professional politician with a lot of especially international diplomatic experience. She also was a former governor. She was ambassador to the UN. So she has seen a big jump. So those are the only 4 people who, as of yesterday, when I last checked, have actually qualified. Technically, Mike Pence still hasn't even qualified, although there are reports that he has the qualifications. He just hasn't reported them yet. Yeah, they're all also terrible. So this is like a race to the bottom, really, if you think about it. Thank you so much for the resub. Come on, 41 months. So those are the 4 that have officially qualified. Again, Mike Pence has the polling numbers. So he has achieved the required polling numbers. But he has not reported officially yet that he has the donors to make the stage. But most people believe he does and that he will be there as well. Everybody else is on the outside looking in at this point. And for most of them, it's the polling that's actually holding them back, which is trickier because there are only so many polls. So I would imagine there probably isn't another poll between now and Wednesday. So my guess is that at most we will probably have 5 people on that stage. So if y'all remember those 2 former or one was a former governor and then one is the current Doug, the hell's his name? He's the governor of North Dakota, Burnham. He will not be on that stage. Asa Hutchinson, who was also basically a bump on a log in the first debate, will not be on the stage. Tim Scott, who is the only Black Republican in the Senate, says he's going to be on the stage, but he's not close, and so I don't think he's going to be there. So I think at best we're going to see 4 people on that stage, although 5 are qualified. But again, Donald Trump's not going to be there. He's already said he has no interest in being part of any of the debates, which is funny because if you remember 4 years ago, he was angry about Joe Biden not wanting to debate him more. So very interesting how that has changed. And he says it's because he has nothing left to prove and that he's already winning, and why would he give them all the time of day? What's also potentially likely, and some might say more likely, is that he's also the target of several active investigations right now, and anything that he says on a debate stage could and probably would get used and would be kind of implicated in those investigations. So he's probably got a lot of people telling him not to engage in any kind of back and forth. If you notice, all of his appearances and such are speeches where there's no chance for people to ask him questions. There's nobody kind of going back and forth with him. It's him just getting up, speaking at a bunch of people, and then leaving. So it's a much more kind of controlled environment where he's not likely to, are not as likely to get himself in trouble. I mean, anytime you give him a microphone, who knows what the hell he's going to say. But so we will probably see Ron DeSantis, Vivek, Nikki Haley, and probably Mike Pence. Which, honestly, I don't like any of them, let me be clear. But if Vivek wasn't going to be there, what a fucking snooze fest. If it was going to be Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, and fucking Ron DeSantis, How boring. How boring. So I appreciate that he's going to be there because I think he'll at least keep things interesting. They all suck, and I don't like any of them. They're all terrible. But as someone who doesn't want any of them to win, the more that we can see them tear at each other for a while, I mean, all the better for us, right? So I think we will go ahead and watch that. So it's going to be streamed on, I think, Fox News. And it's also going to be streamed on Rumble, so we will probably watch it through Rumble again. So if you enjoyed the ads we got last time for the gold, sell your gold to me thing, we'll probably get some of those. My algorithms are all going to be fucked up, but I'm willing to do that for you all, so you don't have to. So again, that's Wednesday night. I don't remember what time. Let me see if this article lists. Oh, not that ad. No, I guess it doesn't say, but I'll find out. It's probably 7 or 8, I would assume. Whatever local time. Although it's in California, so it might be later here because it's in California. So I'll find out the time. I'll post it in the Discord. And again, we'll stream it on here. I don't think I'm going to go all out like I did last time. Like we did the bingo and all the overlays and stuff. I think it's going to be a much more low-key affair. But I'm down to stream it if folks want to show up and show out. Bring your popcorn. Bring your popcorn. Yes, popcorn. Yes, popcorn. No. All right, so the last story to cover for the last goon in this episode of Oops All Goons. And this really breaks my heart a little bit. Although I've been doing, and I learn a lot researching for this shit. I hope you all appreciate how much time and effort I put into this. And I learn a whole lot when I'm like going down the rabbit hole of like the history of Drew Barrymore. She has like a really good reputation in Hollywood and people love her. And understandably so. She's very generally like a very kind person and very likable. I watched a TikTok that dug so far into her family history, all the way back to like the Dutch East India Company. Her family is like, she acts like this like kind of like hippie outsider. She's like the most Hollywood insider it gets. Her like grandfather's grandfather got like a leg up in Hollywood before Hollywood was even a thing. So she's like, she's not as like different as she would have you believe. But anyway, the story with Drew Barrymore centers around her show and the strike. She's like a Nepo grandbaby. She comes from a long line of Nepo babies. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So here's the thing. Again, this is an older story, but I didn't do one of these episodes last week, so I have to say this. So on September 10th, it was a big day apparently. September 10th, she announced that her show was going to come back. They had been on hiatus because of the strike. The writers are striking, the actors are striking, everybody's striking. And so they had been on hiatus in support of the strikes. Great. September 10th, she said they're coming back, but they were going to be like strike compliant. So the way they made it sound was they were going to do this show without writers. They weren't going to support any struck work. Which, how do you have a TV show without writers? Like, do you literally just turn the cameras on and run your mouth for half an hour? Like that just there's somebody is writing for you, whether or not you call them a writer, whether or not you pay them as a writer. Like if you have a TV show, someone is writing for you. You're not just ad-libbing for an hour and avoiding struck work. No. So she made this whole announcement. It was a whole thing. Immediate backlash. People were flabbergasted that of all people, turn your cameras on. Yeah, Drew should just stream on Twitch. Not everybody can just turn on the camera and run their mouth. I am also not just running my mouth. I have an entire Notion template filled out here. Thank you very much. With an entire outline. So even my show has writers. Am I a scab right now? Does it count if I wrote it myself? Does it count if I'm the writer? Not this. Not this. Not this. Does it count if I'm the writer? I don't think so. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. People also aren't paying me millions of dollars for my show. They should be. They should be. But that's clearly not what's happening. Exactly. Thank you, Kiki. You get it. I am the Drew Barrymore of Twitch. Not the first time that was said. So she, like the next week, so 6 days later, September 16th, she released this video on Instagram, which we're going to watch. It's 4 minutes long. Not Drew Carrymore. Not Drew Carey. Ouch. We're gonna watch this video that she posted. She posted it on Instagram, I believe. She has since deleted it, but it's honestly, I feel like we could do a whole show just watching people's apology videos, and I'm kind of tempted to do it. So let me know if that's something y'all want. But she basically apologizes, but also says that she's still bringing the show back. She kind of like spends 4 minutes rambling about like how she wanted to own this decision and she understands why people are upset. And basically she's like, there's nothing I can do to make the people who are mad not mad at me, which is not true. Sure, there are some people who probably be mad no matter what she does because she still made the decision to come back, even if she walks that decision back. But like, there are things you can do. So she basically apologized, but then said, I'm still bringing the show back. She basically apologized, but then said, I'm still going to do the thing that's making you all mad at me anyway. And then the next day, because the backlash just got bigger, that didn't help anything. Nobody felt better. People felt like she was just totally missing the whole point. But she tried to kind of compare it to the COVID pandemic, which is when her show launched. And her argument was they launched this show during the pandemic and gave people something to like look forward to and something that was there for them in this like scary time. And that she wanted the show to do the same thing for people during the strike. Except that's literally counterintuitive and counter to the entire point of the strike. The show should not be there for people during the strike. That's the point of a strike. And it seems like that just totally went over her head. She just chose not to. More likely, she chose to ignore it. So the next day, she then walked it back and said the show's going to be on hold and the premiere won't air until after the strike. So she got there eventually, but she took the longest, most scenic route ever. So we're going to watch the apology video. Yeah. After a word from our sponsors at... Not this. At Beehive.
I believe there's nothing I can do or say in this moment.
Hang on. I think I have it muted. Oh, no, I don't. We're good.
To make it okay. I wanted to own a decision so that it wasn't a PR protected situation and I would just take full responsibility for my actions. I know there's just nothing I can do that will make this okay for those it is not okay with. I fully accept that. I fully understand that. There are so many reasons why this is so complex. And I just want everyone to know.
Here's the thing, and I'm not gonna pause this a bunch of times because I don't want to be that person. It's not that complex. She's making it sound like this is so complicated and there's so many nuances to. There aren't. And the proof that she does understand and that it's not as complicated as she's acting like it is. Back in May, you might remember, Drew Barrymore was scheduled to host the MTV VMA Awards, the Video Music Awards. She backed out of hosting that show in support of the strike. She said, I will not host this show while people are striking. And I hope to come back and host next year. And she said she was still going to watch the show. She understood then. She understood the power of actually supporting the strike and not working through the strike. Then it wasn't this super complicated, complex choice and a situation where she was going to make somebody mad no matter what. Then So why is it now? Ugh, anyway.
My intentions have never been in a place to upset or hurt anyone. It's not who I am. I've been through so many ups and downs in my life.
What does it have to do with this?
And this is one of them.
Classic deflection. She's making it about her. This is a down for you. What about the people who are picketing? You're fine. You could not work for the next 10 years and be just fine. You're not the people who are getting harmed by these streaming companies. You're getting your residuals. How is this a down? I mean, it's a down because you made a shitty choice. But it's like a self-inflicted down moment for you. This is where it's clear that she's not taking like actual accountability. To me, personally. I'm not the people she harmed. However, in my mind, if I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and I'm hearing this, this is where I realize like she doesn't get it. Oh, is this right? Is this tough for you? Is it hard for you to not rake in your millions? Even though she probably still is. Like, she's Drew fucking Barrymore. She's been working since she was what, 7? She could probably live off the residuals she gets from ET alone. Not to mention the other. How many movies has Drew Barrymore been in? At least 60. At least 60. And that's just movies. That's just movies. That doesn't have anything to do with any TV shit. She's got her own TV show now. She's been on plenty of other TV shows. She has a makeup company. I forgot about that. Y'all remember Flower Beauty? She's got that. How many other businesses has she probably got her hands in? She's fucking fine. She could never do another movie as long as she lives. Never show up on TV ever again. And she's going to be just fine. Yeah, it's funny that Google doesn't even know. But 60. Girl, come on now. And don't get me wrong, I am rooting for Drew Barrymore. I have been a big fan of hers. I think she's done some great work, and I do think her show is really interesting. I think she does bring a really interesting perspective, and when you watch her interview people, she has a way of putting them at ease that a lot of other hosts just can't possibly do. But this is not it. This is not it. She has a makeup brand, Flower Beauty.
I deeply apologize to writers. I deeply apologize to unions. I deeply apologize
to drag queens.
I don't exactly know what to say because sometimes when things are so tough, it's hard to make decisions from that place. So all I can say is
You're deeply sorry.
that I wanted to accept responsibility. And no, I don't have a PR machine behind this.
Clearly.
My decision to go back to the show, I didn't want to hide behind people. So I won't. And I won't polish this with bells and whistles and publicists and corporate rhetoric. I'll just stand out there and accept and be responsible. There's a huge question of the why. Why am I doing this? Well,
Yeah, girl.
I certainly couldn't have expected this kind of attention.
Yes, you could have.
We aren't gonna break rules and we will be in compliance.
I would like to know if I had the opportunity to sit down with Drew Barrymore and ask her just one question. It would be this. What do you think a strike is? I don't think she fundamentally knows what a strike is by that comment alone. When she says, we're not gonna break any rules, we're gonna be compliant. What does she think a strike is? How do you comply with a strike but still have a show? I think she thinks that the strike is purely about the specific like request of talent, and that it's not about the broader message you send. Even if you could do, if you had the type of show, like there's some reality shows, for example, that are unscripted shows that have found ways to like continue filming because they don't utilize a lot of the type of talent that is currently struck. But you're still like, there's a principle to be kind of outlined here, and I don't think she understands that by even if she thinks that she's going to manage to do this without writers, and to be clear, she's not the only one who's doing this. Bill Maher, who's also fucking terrible, has said he's going to bring his show back without writers. Okay. So she's by no means the only one, which is why I think it's bullshit when she's like, I could not have imagined this was going to have so much up. Yes, you could. Girl, you're Drew fucking Barrymore. I wish she had a PR machine, because if she had any PR people around her, they would have said, girl, that's a bad move. Don't do that. They would have told her, like, you are Drew Barrymore. Like, this is your brand as being, like, compassionate, empathetic. It's like, she's like, I wouldn't put her on the same level, but she's in the same sort of, like, ballpark as, like, a Dolly Parton, where it's like, her whole brand, what people know her for, whether or not it's deserved, is like that she is just intrinsically a good person. She's not like a shitty, jaded Hollywood person like a lot of other folks are. Anyone who is, I'm not even a PR person. I could have told her, like, yeah, girl, this is a bad move. This runs totally counter to everything that you are in the eyes of the people who keep you working. This is a bad move. Thanks for the lurk, Razor. I appreciate it. Have a good night. Like, you're Drew Barrymore. This is like, so all of this is just very, she says there's no PR machine behind it, and I believe her. I believe she just sat down at her dining room table or whatever and was like, I'm going to film this video, and just started rambling. It's very clear there's no like structure to this, but there's also no, like, there's nothing to be taken away from it either. There's no, like, she keeps saying she's sorry, but she doesn't even seem to know what she's sorry for. She's also not changing anything. So she's sorry, but again, the best apology is change behavior, and she's not doing that. So I don't know what it is she thought people were going to take away from this, or what she thought people were going to, like, how they were going to react or respond. Because this got exactly the kind of response I would have expected.
I wanted to do this because, as I said, this is bigger than me, and there are other people's jobs on the line. And since launching live in a pandemic, I just wanted to make a show that was there for people in sensitive times.
That, I think, is maybe the most honest line in this entire video. I think what happened is, I think she's starting to hear and see more examples of people on her staff, people who work on her show, who are feeling the pinch from the strike. So people who, like, the writers, people who work in like craft services and production assistants, people who don't make tons and tons of money off the show, but that's how they pay their bills, who probably didn't have a ton of money saved up for such an occasion. She's probably starting to hear about those folks struggling to pay their rents or pay their bills and get food. And she's, again, being that I know that she is this empathetic person, or she tries to be, I do believe that she means that. I do believe that she probably thinks she's doing the right thing for them. And I do believe that, at least on some level, that's probably where her mind is at, is that it's about, like, there are other people whose jobs depend on my show, and I'm willing to take the heat for bringing the show back if that means they can pay their bills now. I do believe that there's at least some element of that. I think there's a lot more to it too, but I do believe her when she says that. That said, that's still not the point. Like, there are other jobs folks that can work while striking, and bringing your show back in the middle of the strike isn't going to get everybody else who does that kind of work back to work any faster. It's just going to open the door for more people to do the same shit you're doing, and then it weakens the movement as a whole. The whole point is solidarity.
And I weighed the scales, and I thought, if we could go on during a global pandemic and everything that the world has experienced through 2020, why would this sideline us? So I want to just,
because it's not the same thing.
In front of the
that's
other
why.
And make a show that's there for people, regardless of anything else that's happening in the world, because that's when I think we all need something that wants to be there, being very realistic in very realistic times.
What does that even mean? This is word salad at this point, which is why I believe that she didn't have anything prepared. Oh, girl. Drew. So she's another goon of the week. Again, she ended up, right, these realistic times. Like, what? What? Is she just now realizing that shit's hard for people? Because that's not just a strike thing. Yeah, the background was a little strange. That's the other reason I know there was no like PR person, because they would not have allowed her to do that. So again, she did the day after this video was posted, because this didn't make anything better. It made it worse. It was fire gasoline. But the next day she did kind of walk that back and say that they weren't going to premiere the show until after the strike is over. But again, it's a situation where it's like the damage is already done. Like, you've already kind of showed your ass. And then it kind of reminds me, it's totally different, but the energy that they're bringing is the same, of during Pride Month, when we saw all these companies pull out collabs with small queer-owned businesses, and then when the backlash came, they got rid of them. But then would turn around and try to like stand by them also at the same time. It's like, you can't play both sides. If you're going to stake out a position on something, stand by it. Even if it becomes hard, even if, especially something like that, is going to get backlash. Drew Barrymore kind of just did the same thing, where she said, I want to bring the show back. Oh, sorry, just kidding. No, I don't. I stand with you. That's great, but you've already shown that you don't stand with them. You've already shown that you don't stand with them. So again, that damage is already done. And, some folks might forgive her. And I think there's a conversation to be had about, like, when people do shitty things, and this I think is a conversation that applies in many different circumstances, and not all of them, but it's something I think worth discussing. When we talk about people apologizing and promising to do better, what room, if any, do we make for people to be forgiven in those circumstances? We talk about cancel culture. If someone gets canceled for doing something shitty, and they apologize, it appears to be a genuine apology. I don't think this one was. And they do appear to be like learning and doing better moving forward. At what point can we say like they have made amends for what they've done? Or is that person just always going to be someone you don't trust anymore, that you don't count on, that you don't see as someone who can be counted on to do the right thing for your union or your community? And that's a conversation, I think, especially when we're talking about the streamer community, is a really interesting one, because there are a lot of folks for whom I don't think there is any room for that. That if and when you say or do something that is harmful, you're done. And that there isn't necessarily any redemption there. And I would argue, at least from my perspective, that there needs to be some. And again, that's a moving target, and I'm by no means trying to argue that I know what that has to look like. But my thought process is, if folks who try to redeem themselves will be treated the same forever as the people who don't, what reason do they have, knowing that people are inherently self-motivated and self-centered in their approach? And often folks need an incentive or an external motivator in order to say or do things. What reason do they have to try to redeem themselves? Aside from just, it's the right thing to do. And I wish that realistically that were like enough, but we know that that's not the case for many, many people. So again, I think that it's an interesting conversation to have. I'd be interested. I haven't looked to see like kind of what the response has been since since they announced that they weren't going to bring the show back until after the strike is over. So that's going to be an interesting, I think, dynamic. Lord knows the comments are going to be full of people sharing their ideas and their opinions, so that should be some good reading. But again, you've already done the bad thing. So, and it took the initial announcement was September 10th, so it took a week. It took a week before you finally rolled it back and said, no, we're not going to bring it back. And I saw that backlash. It was immediate and it was stiff. Like it was no uncertain terms. It was clear that people were not happy about it. So for it to take that long, even to me, says like, for it to take 6 days and that's what you came up with was this apology video, says something. But then for it to take a whole other day before you were like, oh, let's just walk it back. To me, that shows there's a fundamental, I think, disconnect in that it's clear that I don't think she understands the purpose of a strike, the purpose of this particular strike, and what it means to actually stand in solidarity with other folks in her industry. So I hope that this has been an educational experience. I hope that it continues to be an educational experience. And I hope I never have to talk about Drew Barrymore being the Goon of the Week ever again.